Hey everybody, I was looking for a place to sit, and here I've got to make sure this isn't in the shot. I was looking for a place to sit and I was going to sit on that log, but there are a lot of fish under the log. Check it out. Also a damselfly. Look at all the fish. So I can't see the screen here, so I couldn't tell you if I'm in the frame or not. I figured I was going to sit against the log and there'd be plenty of space. Let me scout a little bit more to see what I can find so that I can sit in the shade and talk with you about what I want to talk with you about. This seems like an interesting spot. Got just enough shade. My feet are being cooled by the river. As you could tell, I was sweating a little bit. It's kind of humid out here. And there are signs of life. So, I want to tell you a story today, and I hope that you hear it. And the story Imagine it from the perspective of me being a little bit more limited with the time that I'm giving to certain people. Just imagine that I'm having trouble communicating with a parent or any relative or any friend or any stranger even with communicating. And imagine that those communications result in such quick flares of emotion, usually from the other person, that more and more often we're unable to bring ourselves to communicate on very many levels because we no longer can even talk about those simple things without a flare of emotion. So imagine that I'm having difficulty communicating with somebody like this, and imagine that they reached out to communicate with me, like either by phone or by text or by mail or showing up in person or whatever. Imagine that something like that happens, and then imagine that the person who is constantly having an exacerbated response just continues to do that same thing over and over, no matter how the communication occurs, to where it's like, hey, from my perspective, I don't want to hang out with you or talk with you at length because it's not very fun. And so imagine that I'm telling this person this insight and I'm sharing why it's not fun. These types of feedback that the ego is able to accept when it's peaceful are feedback that someone will not become agitated at. And so when we become agitated, there are a lot of things that we should do to reduce the agitation. If we have, let's say, high blood pressure and we don't want to become agitated, we can reduce our exposure to some of the things that are in our proximity. Now, for me, this could be snake-infested waters where I'm at, right? And I even hear a beautiful breeze coming through the vegetation off to my right. I wonder if you can hear it on this video. You can see some of the leaves swaying, I'm sure, in some portion of this shot. I hope I'm not completely cutting my head off in the shot. I wish you could see the damselflies mating behind this shot that's going on. Normally in the past, I would try to capture just those opportunities of beauty. And recently I shared a video that explained what it is that's slowing down our progress. And somewhere in the commentary on those videos, I was advised once again by another comfortable person that I needed to pick up the trash. They literally said, "You need to pick up the trash." And that's what they typed. And those type of comments, did you see the damselflies? I can't tell, they're flying around. The mating damselflies were flying around right in front of the camera. Those type of comments, that type of inability to hear what happened from between this point and this point, is the reason that our conversation is coming up short. And so imagine that there's a person who's doing that, whether it's my parent or a relative or a friend or a scorned love, on any level, because love is love. Imagine anybody who had difficulties communicating to the point where they would absolutely just turn off the conversation without ever trying to get to the bottom of what the resolution was. That ability is the exact same thing as bigotry. And that word itself shouldn't incite any kind of a feeling. It should just be an awareness. Just as an example, yesterday on this platform, I found an inspirational speaker, amazing speaker. They had so much brilliant insight. They have so much brilliant insight to contribute. And I was into a second video of theirs, knowing that, this information is brilliant. I totally want to hear it. And then, at the same exact time, just had a fish chasing another fish in the water here. At the same exact time, I saw off to the right on the column of other videos that this person was live. So I joined the conversation. I'm in awe of this person already. And they're singing beautifully. And I had to compliment them on their singing. And then they started talking about a subject that was close to my personal experiences as well. And since these experiences were close to my personal experiences, I also added my observation from the perspective that I have of exactly how it happened in my circumstance. And the energy changed immediately with the other person. It's because I reflected something at them. Did you hear that? So I reflected something at them. And when you reflect energy back and forth, sometimes people cannot stand looking in the mirror. A real vampire can't see themselves in the mirror. It sounds comical, some of the things that I'm saying, because I'll often plot course in directions that you weren't expecting. Like I'll say something about vampires, something about a television show that talked about vampires, something about a book of peace that talked about people who had demons. All of these different concepts are very real, just as real as there could be an alligator approaching right now. And the only thing I can do is trust that I came in here humbly looking for the beauty of nature and to share that beauty of nature, even if it takes my own life to share it. And to do that, to bring you the mating damselflies, all of the errant discarded trash that is an indicator of some of the things that we could do with less of. As I bring you these insights and explain on a metaphysical level that I'm having a great deal of difficulty restoring my health. Health is wealth, right? And that difficulty is almost assuredly so being contributed to by some of those who are not contributing in real ways. Things on paper are great. You can put numbers on paper, you can put words on paper, you can spell it however you want. But nothing on paper has any value whatsoever, other than the value that we give to it. And to me, the number one most valuable thing that I know exists. Do you hear the breeze? I feel it. It's so pleasing. It's overwhelmingly soothing for those who are experiencing anxiety. One time in the not too distant past, I told a story about how one of my parents was so anxious that they wanted to hit me on the head with rocks, big rocks, like these size rocks, which would have caused significant trauma. Not that I had not already been exposed to trauma by this individual to start with. Somehow, I managed to finally get this person into the vehicle and take them to the river, the San Antonio River. At that point in time, they were able to express their feelings. They were able to discuss what was going on in their mind, and they were able to feel some sense of relief from the burden of not being able to talk with anybody. I am an only child. The burden of not having been able to talk with anybody, especially as we grew up and began to know it all in our teenage years, the burden of the isolation, I know exactly what that feels like. And it's not really all that terrible. Because in your imagination, you can also create imaginary conversations with a higher power. And it might not be all that imaginary. And just to give you an example of what's imaginary versus what's real, when I was driving into this park itself, there was a truck that was coming from the opposite direction. I was deep in a serious thought, just like this thought that I'm trying to relay to you right now. And in that thought, as caught up as I was in that thought, this truck passed by, and both the driver and the passenger waved at me, smiling. They totally, you could just tell, it was just a genuine Texas howdy. And I immediately, the same as I'm smiling right now, immediately waved back. We were acknowledged in a camaraderie, in love, in peace, in joy, in happiness, in an energy of accomplishment and achieving things. And then another truck came by, and I was so overjoyed, and you can feel the mood change. I was so overjoyed, I waved at them the same way. But these people were in a different demographic. You could tell, for a lot of reasons. And in that demographic, for whatever reason, because I had no value to offer them, they accepted my energy, my blessings, and they never responded in return. So you see, the story that is often communicated has a lot more to do than with the initial picture that you get and with the final picture that you get. Everything in between those start and finish points is what matters. And sometimes if we start and we have nothing to show in the middle and we finish in the same state or even a lesser energy state, we can become energy vampires. So as I tell you this story, there are many narcissists who will discredit what I'm saying and discourage. They can attempt to, but once you listen to the words again and again, and even in the songs, you'll understand. You were either thinking on one side or you were thinking from the inside. When you think from the inside encompasses the whole. The people that waved as they were passing by, they were happy while they were passing by. That energy is just as contagious as the illness that I have to put myself into contact with as I discuss things with people who are already disgusted. I don't appreciate that type of lack of reciprocation. I don't accept it. And I hope that you accept what I have said with a grain of salt, with a blessing, for the blessing that it is. So if you're able to hear that message, I know it could be difficult to hear a critique, but it's not really all that difficult if it's coming from somebody who's giving it to you as if you needed to hear this. So I hope that you understand that I am attempting right now to restore my own personal health, which had been on the decline, which had been constantly under assault and berated, belittled, and covered up. And I hope that you understand all I was asking for was a little bit of approval. I hope you approve of this message. I do, and my imaginary higher powers do. For if these weren't true, I would have already been struck down by the approaching alligator. Instead, I've got a beautiful butterfly in front of me flying from flower to flower. Gorgeous, huge, mostly black with blue butterfly. It looks like I want to call it like a swallowtail. It has the little parts of the rear wings that stream down like streamers. We've got magnificent trees all around us. I'm sharing this with you. I'm sharing this experience. And I'm not really asking for anything in return except for the courtesy of having a conversation that can get past the ghosting without having the ability to talk with someone peacefully. None of us are free, because that is showing that many people are acting inside of a compromised system which cannot communicate with other people for some reason. So for me, if you're interested in speaking with me, we would be finding ways to accomplish these things. This thing itself, walking in nature, enjoying fresh, restorative energies with one another, and living while the world around us is being trampled upon and disregarded for pretty much as long as perhaps you and I are unable to communicate. So until next time, thanks so much for visiting again. This channel is called Spiritual Devil. The devil is in the details. And again, until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff. And also, the damselflies are right in front of me, so I'm not going to move just yet. I heard something larger walking in the grass over here. I wonder sometimes if we could do something, if we could call the attention of the butterfly, if we believed in each other's capabilities. And I know for a fact that some of you who have traveled with me have seen some of these things materialize because we believed together, because we were riding side by side, waving at people together. Cheerful, joyful, exuberant, childlike. And for some reason, we got to a point where business as usual trumped Biden time with each other. It's a pretty difficult place to have to choose from in our own minds. Oh, there goes the damselflies. Hope you have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. Peace, love, and all that old school stuff. So I got to thinking that I didn't say earlier, but it's Wednesday, October the 12th, and I'm out here at Guadalupe River State Park, where I'm going to give you a virtual look around us. But try to listen. Don't just look and see what you're seeing. Listen, really listen to the activities that are happening this dusk, this evening, this late afternoon. So you might have noted the various sounds of certain flying insects if you heard them. You might have noted the absence of the sounds of birds because there were no bird sounds. And overall, it's increasingly quiet in these parts of the woods. What's it like in your neck of the woods? Let me know in the comments below.